Alex Rosen, Hunter, has just nabbed another pervert. And this pervert happens to be a political figure that would be the head of the LGBTQ Democrats in Maryland.
You're the head of the LGBTQ Dems in Maryland. Okay. How long have you been in that position for?
Since fall.
Since fall, okay. Is that like a paid position? Okay, just more of a volunteer type thing? Is it like a super PAC or something, or is it just okay. This stuff said here, like, you know, I want to you, I want to see how much of a you are. What was kind of said about that?
I hope you try to get away once I start you.
Yeah.
I like the fantasy, and he seemed to enjoy it. And I didn't know this person, and I never intended to meet him.
Do you think that's appropriate, though? Like,
no, of course. No, of course.
I mean, here we said it's okay if you want to jerk off looking at it, talking about your. And you said, stop by this morning so I can stretch your hole.
Yes.
Can't wait to make you my little. And this was later that, or 4 days later with no response. Can't wait to make you my little dump, baby boy. Okay.
Okay, so this guy who keeps talking to Alex Rosen for some reason, he's a political figure. He is the head of the LGBTQ Democrats in Maryland. During Pride Month, he gets nabbed, by the way. He's talking to someone he thinks is a 14-year-old boy. Obviously, it's this decoy working for Alex, who's got a big YouTube channel and who not only does these investigations that the police often won't do, but then he tries to involve law enforcement in it. Sometimes law enforcement will accept this invitation and go and arrest these people and take predators off the street. Sometimes law enforcement won't. In this case, Alex pointed out, he said, in regard to the lack of police involvement in this, please note, we tried to turn this in back in November. They didn't want anything to do with it. Though he admitted, the head of the LGBTQ Dems in Maryland, he admitted to sending obscene photos. In Maryland, the law states you have to be a cop or a real kid for it to be a charge. He admitted to previously possessing child but did not have any in his possession currently. We are still going to turn all of this over to the cops, but calling them to the scene would have done nothing, and the cops probably will do nothing here. Really, really gross stuff. I sat down with Alex some months ago. We did a full, long Michael and interview. Here's a short teaser.
We had a in Wyoming who came to drink blood. I mean, it's so common for people to be into infants and toddlers. 3 of them have said they have received child as young as 5 years old.
On the scale of these guys don't consider anything in the metaphysical realm to these are interdimensional demons worshiping Satan, where do your marks fall?
Well,
You can go check that out on the Michael Knowles YouTube channel under Michael and, that's the series, or Dailyware Plus. Really compelling stuff, and it's a shame that law enforcement doesn't want to follow up a lot of the time on these important finds. This is obviously totally humiliating for the head of the LGBTQ Dems in Maryland. You know, awful stuff, probably criminal. Again, I don't know. I'm not a cop. I'm not a prosecutor, but there's probably some criminal stuff here. But you heard what he said. He said, look, it's just a fantasy. I was just fantasizing. I wasn't really going to do it. And now he's caught on camera and his life is ruined. It's humiliating because it's so vile. It's humiliating because it's so shameful. But if you look at this in charity, I know it's very difficult to look at this kind of thing in charity, but if you look at this thing in charity from the perspective of a fallen world where you say, there but for the grace of God go I, if you try to put yourself in this guy's shoes, you got to ask yourself, how many things had to go wrong in this guy's life? How many bad decisions did this guy have to make to end up there standing opposite Alex Rosen, being nabbed for all of the world to see, saying and doing some of the most disgusting stuff imaginable? What happened? He obviously is addicted to. That's something that's ubiquitous, though. It's everywhere in the culture. Okay, there's that. He had to believe that certain sexual pathologies and aberrant behaviors and disordered desires are okay, should be affirmed, you know. So maybe he was born with these kinds of desires, or maybe that's what he told himself. He has to believe that life is about just pursuing your own interests without regard to reason, think about all the time that this guy has spent scheming and talking to people he thinks are children online. And think about how completely twisted this guy's life is. The reason I bring all that up is it could be anyone. Maybe not this particular crime, but people can end up down a rabbit hole, and it always starts with one bad decision. Maybe some bad circumstance, and then one bad decision leads to another, to another, to another. And before you know it, forget about this guy for a second. Before you know it, you're Hunter Biden, born, basically with a silver spoon, whose father is a very influential person, and you're buying crack on Skid Row in Los Angeles. I mean, you think that's a crazy one, or you're going to strip clubs every night, or you're doing whatever. People think, well, that's just someone else. That can't happen to me. It can't. This is a fallen world, man. You can end up in really bad places if we continue to encourage and normalize these sorts of depraved behaviors. One will lead to another, to another, to another. The libertarians say legalize everything. Just let people do whatever they want. That's freedom or whatever. I don't know. That's the freedom that lands you doing an interview with Alex Rosen. That's the freedom that lands you on Skid Row buying crack. If only there was a little less of that kind of freedom and some more of the real freedom that built up our country, maybe that guy wouldn't be in that position. Neil Ferguson, the historian, just pointed out, quote, any great power that spends more on debt service than on defense will not stay great for very long. True of Habsburg Spain, true of the Ancien Regime in France, true of the Ottoman Empire, true of the British Empire. This law is about to be put to the test by the U.S. beginning this very year. This year, we will spend more just servicing the U.S. national debt than we will spend on defense. This is the first issue that I focused on in politics. When I got involved in politics at a national level, when I was but a wee lad, my first campaign was a congressional campaign. It was focused largely on this issue of debt and spending. And then I worked on some national campaigns that were focused on that issue. We've done nothing about it. The situation has only gotten worse and worse and worse. And sometimes we mock this issue of the debt as a kind of just a policy wonk nerd issue. It's no big deal. But it can have real tangible consequences. The Tea Party was largely about how we need to get our spending under order. There was a really great speech given at CPAC once by Mitch Daniels, who was then the governor of Indiana, saying we have a new red menace, this one consisting of ink. And unfortunately, the issue is kind of a snooze fest for a lot of people, and they don't care. They want to talk about the more cultural issues. And in fact, I can understand why. Because the argument made by people like Mitch Daniels was we need to get our fiscal house in order, then we can focus on the social issues, but we need a social truce until then. But that's not how politics really works. That's what we learned. Daniels is a super smart guy. He was a great governor, but that's just not how politics works. Actually, debt and the way we spend money and the way we think about money is a social issue. If we don't get the social issues in order, if we don't shore up the American family, if we don't shore up our borders, if we don't shore up community and our sense of our obligations to the country and a turn away from selfish interest and toward the common good, then we're just not going to fix the fiscal problem. We're all just going to keep trying to get money out of the pie. But we have to do something about it. We are very complacent. We really seem to think that the American empire, the American global hegemony is going to go on forever. Lesser empires, lesser nations have... Or I'm sorry, rather I should say greater, more splendid-looking, magnificent-looking empires, you think of the Ancien Regime in France, have fallen for these kinds of issues. No one's even talking about it. No, it's off the table. The suggestion of entitlement reform or really any way to get the budget, neither party is at all interested in it. Maybe because we need to fix the social issues first, then we can talk about it. But clock's ticking, as the nerdy historians point out. Nerdy historians are often correct. Man, that was a great clip. Now, ring the bell. Subscribe to the Michael Knowles YouTube channel. See you next time.